Hello, and welcome to Pest in Class, expert voices in pest management. Today, I speak with Diego Rodriguez, the technical specialist and canine team supervisor at Preventive Pest Control in Las Vegas. With years of experience in training bed bug detecting dogs, Diego gives us a masterclass on how these teams are built, trained, and managed. If you've ever wondered what the real world benefits, the training involves, or what to expect when partnering with man's best friend, then this episode is for you. I'm your host, Amanda Salvatore. Let's get into it. Diego Rodriguez, you are the technical specialist and canine team supervisor at Preventive Pest Control in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today we are discussing the surprising challenges and rewarding partnership of training dogs for pest control. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored that you guys chose me to speak with on this topic.
I thought this was such a great topic because there often are some misconceptions about using dogs for sniffing out bed bugs for pest control. And I think you're such an expert that we're really going to dive deep, and it's going to be an awesome conversation. So first and foremost, we are going to start with an icebreaker so we can get to know you a little bit better. If you were a professional baseball player, what would be your walk-up song that plays as you approach the plate?
So for me, that song is actually called Dog by this group called the Bottle Rockets. I first heard it at a police canine trials here locally. One of the officers came out with this partner to that song, and I knew right then and there, I'm like, I'm going to steal that. I play it all the time. If I'm giving my dogs baths, I play it on a loop, and they just know that it's bath time. Whether it's good or bad for them, they know if that song's playing, that's what's going to happen. And there's one line in that song that says, if you don't like my dog, that's okay. I don't want you to. It's my dog. And for some reason, that just hits with me, and it kind of fits what a relationship should be with your dog.
I love that. I'm going to have to check that out. And I also love that that's their bath time song. So my son's currently is Rubber Ducky, which is a very basic choice. So I think this is a much better choice and a lot more fun. So let's get into it. How did you find yourself in this industry?
So back in 2008 and 2009, I was a union carpenter here in Las Vegas. And as you can probably remember, 2008, 2009 was not a very good time for construction and the economy. So I found myself unemployed. Then I met a guy at church who owned a pest control company. He needed help with a pigeon cleanup job up on a gas station canopy. I had a truck, so he asked me if I could come help, and that it started back in early 2010. And then he kind of wanted to focus on bed bugs, and that's where he put me to learn how bed bugs work, how their behavior is, their biology, and he wanted to focus on the heat aspect of treatment and the best ways to treat for them. And that's kind of how my career path started.
So you're working with bed bugs, you're doing these heat treatments. So how did you start working with detecting dogs? How did that come about?
Well, it was pure chance, honestly. So a couple of years in, my former boss came to one of the job sites where I was doing a heat treatment. And I was sitting outside, and he's like, hey, guess what? This other company that he'd gotten to know in Arizona, they're going to be training bedbug dogs. And I went, what? I knew right then and there. I'm like, ooh. So I just raised my hand. I'm like, me. I want to do that here. So I started to train with the guy that was doing it out of Arizona. And through life circumstances, he wasn't able to last much longer. So about a month in or so, I loaded up my truck, grabbed a trailer, and we went to Arizona, and I got all the dogs that we were training with, and I brought them to Vegas, and I picked up all their kennel equipment and all that stuff. The very last piece of advice he gave me proved to be very crucial. He said, hey, I know this didn't work out for me, but you need to go see this guy named Sonny Henniger. So that's kind of the first person I reached out to Sonny, and he was the first person that was a real mentor and the person that kind of helped me set the foundation, which I've built my career on.
How did that kind of shape the trajectory of you working with these animals? What was some of his best advice?
When we would run into issues, I would tell him, hey, we have this problem and we can't figure out what's going on here and here and here. And he would just let me talk it out. And then he would take me back to the basics. And he would say, hey, this is here. And it's this simple answer. You just have to. And little by little, he would stop telling me that and let me talk it out. And I would get to the point where I'm like, oh, Lord, I just have to go back to the beginning and make sure I understand that most of these problems are solved in the basics. And honestly, that's basically the biggest thing he taught me is you have to have a very solid foundation. So when you do come into issues or problems, go back to your foundation, go back to your fundamentals, and that's usually where your solutions will be found.
I would love to talk about these basics that you were referring to, but before we get into that and really the nitty gritty of training, how does a pest control company know if a dog is right for them? If what do they need to consider when they're taking this on?
Well, the first thing they really need to look at is to understand how much of an undertaking it actually is. It's not as simple as having a pet dog. It's very, very time consuming. It's going to take over a good fraction of somebody's life. The next thing companies should look at is whether their business model fits bringing in a dog. Do they do enough bed bug work? Is the market there? Do you do enough hotels? Do you do enough apartments or healthcare facilities that are going to require this type of service? Retirement homes or places like that might need constant inspections and understanding of kind of what's going on in that building. People have to understand that these are not your average dogs. You pick from dogs that are high drive, so they're not your couch potatoes. They're the dogs that are going to be running in circles. They require an extra level of time consumption and attention. Because even if you purchase a trained dog, you still have to maintain the training and so you can ask for a level of excellence. So you have to be willing to invest in the constant time that it'll take and to keep that dog's training up to par, and also investing in having your handler develop into a good handler and continue to grow as time moves on so you have a good team. Also, the dogs initially are very expensive. If you go purchase a finished dog, you're going to be paying $12,000 to $15,000. So that's just your initial buy-in. So if you don't have $12,000 to $15,000 to start, if you look at everything and you decide that it's not the time for you or it's not the right fit, go find a company that you trust that's reputable that you can go and subcontract this work out to.
Sounds like you should have, if you're considering utilizing these animals, you need to definitely have it built in that these services are something that you're going to need. You have bigger spaces that you need to cover, apartment buildings, homes, and things of that nature where people are living. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So I think it would help us if we talk about the 3 different types of inspections.
Great. I love that.
So even though it's simply the dog looking for live bugs or eggs, and some people actually choose to use all evidence dogs. So there's a fine resort here in Las Vegas that they choose to find any kind of evidence because anything is too much for them. So their dog finds fecal matter, dead bugs, the cat's skins, and live bugs and eggs. But for someone like me, I need to have a live only dog to make sure that we can tell the difference between something that's been taken care of and exterminated, or if there's still a live bug or egg in the vicinity. So the first type of inspection that you can do is a proactive inspection. That would be great for places like your hotels that you service that want to have you come in ahead of time and try to find the bugs before the guest does. So that's something that you would have scheduled ahead of time. You would go, let's say, once a week and do a block of 20 rooms. And you go and you inspect all 20 rooms. And if you find something, then you can take care of it or do whatever you need to do next. But at least you know you found a room that's positive. And that helps you kind of get ahead of the problem. That can also be used in scenarios where, like, let's say it's like a mid-rise or a high-rise apartment building where many times the residents are not going to say something or they don't know they have an issue. Then you come in, you go through and you do blocks of rooms. You do a hallway this week, the next hallway the next, or a floor, or however you choose to break it up. But then you start finding problems before they become even bigger problems down the road and start affecting other people. So that's the very first type of inspection, is a proactive inspection. The second kind of inspection is a reactive inspection. So that's when you have somebody think they have bed bugs. They're either getting bit, they're getting itchy, they saw a bug that they're confident was a bed bug, but then they couldn't find it again. It got away from them for whatever reason. And then this is where the human end of the leash comes into play very well, because they have to understand the whole process. Because if somebody's getting bit up, the technician, the handler, has to understand, okay, those bites are consistent with bed bug bites, so I'm going to make sure I'm very thorough with this inspection. So when somebody has a concern, you can come in and do an inspection and either find the problem, or you can clear the area and help them narrow down by process of elimination that whatever's going on with them may not be bed bugs. The dog went through, the dog couldn't find anything, so maybe what's affecting you is something else. And many times we'll ask them to go ask their medical provider what their bites are, because we saw no evidence of bed bugs. It didn't sound like the bed bug bites were similar to what we have been told bed bug bites look like. And it's also very important that we don't tell them what's on their body, because that we're pest professionals, not medical professionals. So we kind of have to be very clear to what we deal with. So that's a reactive inspection. You come, you show up because there's a concern, and you help identify if that is the problem, or if it's not the problem and it's a clear area. And then the last kind of inspection would be a post-treatment inspection. So when you treat something and you come and you do a follow-up, all the bed bugs seem to be dead. The technician did an inspection and hasn't been able to find anything. And that's where a live-only dog comes into play more than an all evidence dog. And the dog can search through the entire treatment. And if they can find a live bug or a live egg, a viable egg, they can let us know that, hey, there's still some more work to be done here. Or we can give them peace of mind that, hey, like, we couldn't find anything today, so you're probably good to go.
So I'm a company. I have decided, yeah, I hit all of these check marks. I have all this criteria, and I think we can utilize this. We have the finances for this. We want to invest in these animals. What is their next step, especially if they're interested in training?
The first step would be to do some research on where you want your dog to come from. You want to make sure you get a healthy dog from a good trainer, and go do your research and make sure that what you want to get is going to be ultimately what you get. And even then, there's still a risk, because you never know how things play out down the road. Then they need to consider the other end of the leash. They need to pick somebody that's going to be a good handler, and that person's going to put the effort forward to make sure that you have a good team overall. And you have to make sure that you have the room in your operating procedures to implement this to where they have support.
Now, I know right now that you have an apprentice who is working with you. So what are the qualities that you look for in a potential handler? And what does the training process for a human team member look like?
The most important thing for me is to have somebody that you can trust, that's going to show up and that can take input, that can take some guidance, and not be ego driven. We need someone that can take constructive criticism and use that to build themselves up and their team up to make sure they're a good team. I also require my apprentice to be very knowledgeable about bed bug behavior and their biology, because if you understand how bed bugs work, it will help you understand where you need to focus on your dog's inspections, and that way you're not inspecting the wrong things and missing where the bed bugs truly might be. You also have to be very patient. So we need to find somebody that's patient. You can't rush the training. You can't rush the dogs. It kind of has to build very naturally. You can't just slap it all together and hope that it sticks. It's not going to work that way.
Oh, I was going to say, it sounds to me like you need to make sure you have somebody on the team who is a good listener, because when it comes down to it, if you're training this animal and you create bad habits, that's probably really difficult to break for this animal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, dogs learn all the time, whether it's on purpose or whether it's by accident. So if you teach your dog, hey, between the truck and the inspection area, we're going to walk with manners, we're going to walk with good behavior, that's what your dog is going to do. If you teach your dog by not doing anything, you just throw the leash on them and then they walk through everything all crazy, they're learning that that's okay and that's what they're going to do. So you have to pay attention to detail, which is another part of what you need with a handler. You need somebody who has good attention to detail. You can't have someone who's just going to show up and kind of let things roll. You need someone who's very curious about how the whole process works and that wants not only to understand what happens, but why stuff happens, why the dog reacts this way, why the odor behaves in a certain way. You need people that kind of want to get in the weeds of all that stuff to make themselves and their dogs better. You need someone who's not afraid to make mistakes. You can't have somebody who's very short fused. So if the dog's not doing what they want, someone who gets angry and starts yelling or whatever, that may have an impact on the relationship with the handler and the dog, where it may not recover, or the dog may not want to do that anymore because it's like, oh, last time I tried doing that, dad got mad and I don't want to make dad mad, so I'm not going to do that. So you need someone who can also maintain their composure. The thing I look for the most, it's very simple. I want someone who wants to do it. I don't want someone who can do it. And there's a huge difference to me.
I want to go back to the basics that Sunny talked to you about, because this kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking with right now, which honestly, I have to say, as you're talking, I just keep thinking about, I have a 2.5-year-old at home and I feel like it's very similar in a lot of ways. So a lot of this is resonating with me. Let's talk about those basics that Sunny would revert back to whenever you found yourself a little lost or having questions. What were some of those fundamental blocks that he taught you about?
It could be something as simple as, hey, when you are about to search an area, does your dog know that you're about to work? He would have me do something simple like, hey, every time you're about to search an area, have your dog sit. And that way they know, okay, when we're in this scenario, then we're about to do something here. So if I were to just start, like walk up to a room and just tell the dog to go, the dog would be like, oh, but we didn't do our little like high five pattern thing that we do before we go in. So it could be something simple like that. Making sure that you proof your odors to make sure that your dog's not indicating on the wrong thing. So you have to make sure that your dog's only hitting on live bed bugs. So you have to put out training aids with dead bed bugs to make sure that the dog can tell the difference. You got to make sure that you're doing your obedience to make sure the dog is properly listening and understands what's going on. You have to make sure that you do search patterns to make sure your body's in the right place. You got to make sure that your leash handling's correct. Very, very simple stuff that you kind of have to go through. But if you forget about it, or you kind of get used to it and do it by muscle memory, and you start getting sloppy, and it'll come back and it'll haunt you. So you have to make sure that you always kind of go back and train the basics. Do simple things like odor lineups. You don't always have to go search a room in training. You could just do an odor lineup to make sure that the dog's on the proper thing and not goofing off, telling you about something else that because they got bored and you're not actually kind of keeping them motivated.
There's so much more to it. The idea that they would get bored is hilarious to me, but also something that you have to watch out for, but not something I would immediately think that would be an issue or a problem. I have to ask, what are some of the biggest challenges and rewards when it comes to working with these animals?
The biggest challenge is keeping consistency in place on both ends of the leash. You got to make sure that your dogs are trustworthy, that they're not going to be lying to you. Earlier in my career, I saw a piece on one of the news networks where they brought in a brand new couch and they hired a bunch of dog handlers in New York City. And 7 out of 10 of them told them that there were bed bugs there, but they knew there was absolutely no bed bugs there. So we can have a dark stain on kind of what we do. I work really hard to have the best dogs available, dogs that are honest. We want to make sure that we're consistently giving our clients the best, most honest answer that we can get for them. There's also a commitment of time. So in the law enforcement world, they have a model of training 4 hours a week. We try to keep that same amount of training because it seems to work for them to make sure they have good, consistent dogs. So we try to put 4 hours a week in there. When I first came over to my current company, my boss said, he's like, you need to train how many hours a week? I told him, I'm like, at least 4. And he did the math and he's like, that's 5 weeks a year. I'm not paying you to train for 5 weeks out of the year. And I said, if you want good dogs, you will train for 5 for that long because it's what you need to have a good system in place. Sometimes you can kind of mitigate that with throwing training into your actual inspections. So if I get called out to do an inspection and I actually visually find something alive, that's the best training scenario for me. So I will make sure I run my inspection in a way where I finish on those live bugs. And that's better than any training scenario you can do. So you can integrate some of your training in that way. Or if you go and you don't know what you're going to find, I'll pick an area outside of my search area and I'll put a training aid out so I can run my inspection. And then after I'm completed with that, I can take the dog over and run that training scenario. And that way I get to pay my dog and they are happy. They accomplish their mission. I know my dog's doing the right thing. And then the dog's just ready to go do another one. Also, you can't cut corners. You have to be very proficient in everything that you do, the whole process. You have to make sure you understand the biology side of the bed bugs. You have to make sure you put in your training. You have to be open to learning from other people. You have to be open to going, you know what I've been doing was okay, but that might be better. So you have to be able to understand the whole process so you can make choices that are going to help you become a better team down the road. Having to deal with people when you go in to inspect residences, apartments, and stuff like that, that's one of the hard things. So we have a prep sheet for our services. So we always give it to the resident or whoever we're going to inspect before we go do an inspection, and many times they won't follow them. I do those prep sheets for 2 very important reasons. Number one, and it's number one for this reason, it's for the safety of my dog. Many times people will have medicine that they leave laying out, sharp items, spoiled food, who knows what, all over the floor, under the beds or whatever. If the residents don't take the time to look through the prep sheet to make sure that they are ready for the inspection, I'm not going to risk bringing my dog into an unsafe condition. And then the second thing is to give them a more accurate inspection. If they remove the food that's sitting up on the counter, the soda that's been sitting in the corner of the teenager's room for 3 weeks, if they don't clean that kind of stuff up, it's also going to diminish the accuracy of our inspection. Even though they're trained dogs, they're still dogs. So odors will distract them. And if they're too busy worried about where the cat's hiding, and because there's cat fur everywhere, it's going to be harder to keep them on point to make sure they're doing what they've been trained to do over what they instinctually want to do, which is go find that cat so they can either play with it, or chase it or whatever they want to do to the cat.
When we first spoke, I did not know this. So I wonder if some of our listeners also have the same question that I had when we first met. Where do these dogs stay? What are the accommodations? Who is taking care of these animals?
Well, to the chagrin of my wife, they stay at my house. She thinks we have too many dogs, and I disagree. I don't think we have enough. But no, they belong to me. They stay at my house. They live in my front room right now.
Oh my goodness. How many dogs do you have right now?
6 dogs.
Sure. Okay. Okay. I could see how someone would say maybe that's a lot, but I could also see that there are certain people out there who would say not enough.
Not
So
enough.
it's
But
straddling that line.
in my defense, they help me bring home a paycheck, so they pay rent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They earn their keep. They earn
do.
their keep. I would love to know about a little bit about your dogs, something maybe about their personality or what makes them a good fit, your dog specifically.
So the first dog I'll talk about is Scout. She has been my rock for the last 10 years. She's going on 11 now, but she's kind of the dog that I chose to kind of build my program on once I got going. So Scout is the most sweet dog that I've ever owned. She's a Belgian Malinois. She comes from police lines, so she has a lot of spiciness to her, but that never shows up when she gets put into detection, when she gets brought around children and stuff like that. She's the dog that we take to career days. So I have no problem or any concern whatsoever when I take her and I put her in a sea of kindergartners and they're all over her, swarming her, and she just loves it. She soaks it in and she shows that love back. So Scout she's kind of the legacy, the beginning of the legacy. And then several years ago, I decided that I wanted more of that. So she actually had a litter of puppies. So 2 of those puppies are currently working for us as well. They've taken a lot of what she already taught me as a handler and as a trainer, and she gave some of the genetics to them that helped them do their job very, very well. And now that Scout's going to be retiring, we're going to be replacing him with a little black lab named Shadow, who his job is going to be to go out and say hi to people, say hi to kids, go do career events, go out and greet customers. And people love seeing the dogs. So that's something that works really well. So I have a bunch of Malinois and a black lab.
I can tell while you're talking about them how much you care about them and how much joy they bring you. And it's wonderful to see. I love this topic. I got to say, I'm having a blast. Before we go, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Detection dogs are more than just something you can add on. It ultimately does end up as another tool in your tool belt, but they're serious work. They require a lot of time, a lot of effort. If you're very serious about it, make sure that you do your homework and you prepare yourself to be in that good place down the road. The success will come from the training, the consistency, and the commitment that you put towards your company, towards the dog, and towards the public, because that's ultimately what we're doing this for, is to give peace of mind to people. If you decide to do one, make sure you train with others. I have zero problem training with competitors. I have zero problem training with different lines or different disciplines of detection. So we train with security teams that do explosive detections or drug detection or things like that, because you can learn from each other. So don't be afraid to go out and train with other people. And if you can, use as many different sources of the bugs as possible so your dogs learn to generalize. So don't pigeonhole yourself into anything. Always work on trying to get certified through third-party organizations. So if you end up in something like a landlord dispute, which I've been on those, and you end up in court, make sure that when you get asked if your dog is doing what you claim they're doing, there's a third-party organization that can step in and say, here's their certification. We put them through a series of tests and they met to our standard. So that's, I think, very crucial that people work to get certified. And it also kind of helps keep you on a proper training path. Don't box yourself in. Get involved in the community. I do a lot of events with the dog. I'll take them out to different places to make sure that the community knows we're out there, and people just love seeing the dog. Many times I get greeted with, "Where's the dog?" And I'll be like, "Hi, how are you? So nice to see you. She's on the truck. She'll be in here shortly." But yeah, the impact you will have on your customers, in your company, and honestly in the industry and in the community is really worth the effort that it takes to do this.
Diego, once again, thank you so much for coming on to Pest in Class. This was a great conversation, very different from what we normally get to talk about, and much appreciated.
Well, thanks for taking a few moments out of your time to come into our world and see what we do. And this was truly a blast. And I'm very honored that you chose us and took the time to speak with us and learn about what we do.